Hello people, this is Self-Tuts, and in this video we'll learn about the internals of AWS Lambda. You must be wondering that what happens when you invoke a Lambda function. A Lambda function can be invoked from different sources, like you can invoke a Lambda function from AWS command line tool, or you can invoke it from API gateway. Also, an event in S3 bucket can invoke a Lambda function. So what actually happens when you invoke a Lambda function? So suppose this is the AWS cloud interface, and everything on the right side of it is the AWS cloud, and on the left side of it is the client system. So there can be multiple clients through which AWS Lambda function can be invoked. In the AWS cloud, there is a Lambda function with the name resize image. So what happens? The responsibility of this Lambda function is to accept the image and resize it, means the reduce the size of that image. So suppose the first request come to the AWS cloud interface, which is basically targeting the resize image Lambda function. So what AWS Lambda will do, it will create a container with the code that you have written in this resize image Lambda function. So all the code will be packed up and a container will be created which will handle the request that is coming from the client. So now suppose second request comes. So this container is able to handle the second request also and the third request also. But as the fourth request comes, the load on this Lambda function will increase. So what AWS Lambda will do, it will spin up a new container. Means at present the request is increasing, so the number of containers are also increasing. So all this infrastructure work is being handled by AWS itself, and you don't have to worry about anything. You only have to worry about what the code you have written and nothing about the AWS infrastructure. So suppose the requests are increasing, so AWS Lambda is also creating new containers for you. Now suppose the request has become high, so it will create more containers and more container. So at present, these many containers have been created by AWS Lambda internally, and you will be charged for these container, means the amount of time these functions, this resize image Lambda function is running inside this container, you will be charged for that. So if the number of requests are increasing, then you will be charged more. But you might be thinking, what happens if the number of requests decreases? So if the number of requests decreases, then AWS Lambda will kill the container by itself. So the number of requests are decreasing, the number of containers are also decreasing. So you can see the requests are decreasing and the number of containers are decreasing. So when there is no request, then AWS Lambda will kill all the containers that it has created. So now you will be charged nothing because there is no container, running, there is no code running. So the amount of money for now that you will be charged will be zero. So by making new containers, AWS Lambda handles the increase in request. So this is all about how AWS Lambda works internally. If you like my video, please subscribe to my channel and please give a thumbs up.